Hi, and welcome to this webinar presentation. My name is Alexander Summerall, the founder of this cob house, and today I'm doing this webinar as a pre-recorded message. So now just sit back, relax, and listen in as I cover some really important topics on building a cob house today. This time I want to just jump right into the content, the really good knowledge you've been waiting to hear. But first, let me just briefly introduce myself before we get started. For those of you who don't know me yet, I'm a cob builder and teacher of natural building, and I've taught several thousand people about cob and other natural building techniques through my company, This Cob House. So you might know me from my website, thiscobhouse.com, or maybe from some of my online teaching materials, or as a subscriber to my email newsletter maybe. But either way, whether you've been following me or not, I just want to welcome you here to this presentation today. So let's get right into it here. Today I want to talk to you about some new topics that I haven't covered in any of my previous webinars, and I'll also go over some of the fundamentals for everyone who's new. So here's the lineup of what I want to teach you this time around. To start, I'll give you a brief history of cob and earthen building, and then you'll have a better understanding of where this building material comes from, and it'll seem a little less strange. Then I want to introduce you to cob and the possibilities with building with it. Whether you want to build a cob house, a shed, a water pump house, a playhouse or dog house, or a pizza oven, or cob oven, or just some nice kind of garden walls or privacy walls outside. There's just so much you can build with cob. Then, after that, we'll go over some of the characteristics of cob as a building material, and why cob can be such a great option to use for a home. And I'll tell you what you need to make cob, where to get the ingredients for making cob, and how to test your soil to see if it's suitable for making good cob. Then I'll talk about some of the different ways that you can actually mix cob, and there are a few main techniques. There's the foot labor technique, or by using machinery. And then next, you'll need to know how to test your cob to determine if it's suitable or not for building with. So I'll briefly go over that as well. And then next, we'll turn to some new topics that I haven't covered in the previous webinars. And the first one will be all about building codes and how they relate to building a cob house. And I'll present some strategies for building according to codes. And then next, to tie into this subject, I'm going to speak about how to find an architect that can help you design your cob house and help you get it permitted by your building department. And I'll talk about how to incorporate other subcontractors into your building project and how to keep everyone synchronized and working together efficiently. Then at the end of this presentation, I'm going to present you with some bonus content and give you a special offer on my updated cob training program. And then at the very end, I'll go through some questions and answers for you. Okay, so now that we've gone through all that summary, let's get right into the information. I'll give you a little bit of history first. So earth building techniques have been around for thousands of years. Throughout history, people have been using the earth to build with, and these building techniques and materials are actually very ancient. We're really just experiencing a sort of revival of these old time-tested materials now. And some statistics even say that about 2/3 of the world's population currently lives in buildings made of earth materials. So basically, there's an incredible amount of history and knowledge for us that we need to rediscover, which can be applied to the future of building. So with earth architecture, we don't actually have to abandon everything that we currently build with. We can just take these methods from the past and move them into the future while replacing what makes the most sense. And now, a bit more specifically about cob. So the word cob is derived from southwest England and is known by other names around the world too. In the Middle East, South and Central Asia, it's sometimes referred to as layered mud, and this term really describes the material in the building process pretty well. Because cob is basically globs of doughy mud material that's stacked and compressed on top of itself in layers to create structures. And cob is a combination of clay-rich soil, aggregate, straw, and water. and the ingredients are mixed together into a stiff, dough-like consistency that can then be easily stacked and molded. Cob buildings are known for their thick walls and rounded sides and corners, and the material gives a builder a lot of flexibility in design. It's a lot like sculpting or shaping a building out of clay, much like a sculptor would form a model. So cob, or whichever name it goes by in a specific region of the world, is really as ancient as building itself, and the material has been used across most of the globe since the materials are readily and locally available in most places. Cob, or layered mud, as it's also sometimes called, has been used throughout history to construct all types of structures, from homes, shops, fortresses, government buildings, mosques, walls, and fortifications. And cob buildings have been known to last for hundreds of years, and there are still thousands of cob homes and farm buildings in Devon, England, that date back from the 14th century to the 19th century. And cob buildings can easily last for several hundreds of years if maintained. And maintenance requires keeping the roof, foundations, and plasters in good condition to protect the cob structure from moisture. So what makes a cob house really so special over standard conventional homes? Let's take a look at some of the advantages of cob now. And the first advantage is low materials cost. The raw materials required for cob building are widely available around the world at little to no cost, which consist of soil, sand, straw, and water. Cob building materials also don't require any high energy processing or manufacturing activities like wood, cement, and fired bricks do. People have even built high quality cob homes for as little as a few $1,000s. But it all really just depends on what you want your home to be like. The next advantage is it's great for do-it-yourself builders. Cob homes can usually be built by the owner, and you don't need a degree in architecture or to be a structural engineer to build a cob house. Many people build their own homes just after taking a cob building workshop, and it's a very rewarding experience to be able to build your home with your own two hands. So the material cost for cob is low, and there's usually very little outside labor that has to be paid for in addition. Usually an electrician and a plumber might be necessary for some help on the project, but otherwise you can do the vast majority of the labor on your own. And if you put in the labor to build with earthen materials, then you'll save a considerable amount of money in the long run. So next advantage is interior temperature regulation. So soil from the earth has proven to be a very suitable and successful building material throughout the world's many climates because of its ability to regulate the indoor temperature. Earth is a poor conductor of heat, it has low thermal conductivity, and has high thermal mass. So basically this means that cob walls can actually store and release heat to regulate the indoor air temperature. And this is going to make your home much more energy efficient, and it can cut down drastically on your electrical needs if your house is designed right. So the next thing is beauty. Cob and earthen buildings have been constructed all around the world and have many unique styles, but they tend to be more attractive and colorful compared to their counterparts built with wood, stone, or fired brick. Next advantage is its flexibility and its strength. So the plasticity of cob allows for decorative ornamentation and roundness of corners and openings, giving a sort of soft feeling to the building. And when dry, cob buildings are extremely strong and durable, resembling that of stone. Fortifications used to be made with cob and similar earthen materials because they were so strong like this. And bullets can barely penetrate a thick earthen wall, and they're nearly impossible to dig through. So the straw, which is part of the cob mixture, acts like a natural rebar that holds the whole structure together as one giant monolithic piece. And this makes cob homes extremely solid and resistant to earthquakes too. So many cob homes have lasted for hundreds of years with minimal upkeep, whereas standard wooden structures generally only survive a few generations. So if you build a cob home for your family, it will last for many generations to come. Next big advantage is a healthier living environment. Unlike a conventional home, which is constructed with synthetic, industrial formed materials, cob homes are built almost entirely out of natural, clean materials, for the most part. And industrial homes are full of these indoor air pollutants and off-gassing of chemicals that are contained in the building materials themselves. Whereas cob homes do not have this problem because cob actually breathes through its tiny pores and keeps air fresh and clear. So if you suffer from indoor allergies, this can be good living in a cob house, because it could significantly improve your quality of life by eliminating these toxins that may cause them. Okay, next advantage is acoustic privacy. Earthen walls have very good sound absorbing properties that keep it really quiet inside, both from exterior noises and noise generated inside the same building. Another good advantage is termite proof. As far as the cob material goes, since cob is a mixture of soil, aggregate, sand, and straw, it's not attractive to termites at all. To add to that, cob homes have not been known to become burrowing grounds for insects or animals either. I get a lot of people asking me if that occurs a lot, but it doesn't. Next good advantage of cob is that it's fireproof. So cob does not catch fire. However, still be aware of your ceiling or roof, as it might not be flame resistant like the body of the house. So here are some other important concepts to know about cob homes. So the first thing about cob homes is the size. Cob homes are usually known to be small and size efficient, and there are many reasons that they're built to tiny home standards a lot of the time. Most builders and residents of cob homes understand and appreciate keeping things simple and down to earth. Cob homes are also labor intensive to construct, and they're oftentimes built by their owners. And it's usually more intelligent and efficient to only build to the size of your everyday needs. There are also some recent examples of really large cob homes though. For one example, Kevin McCabe, a UK cob builder, has been building several large cob homes in England, and he's even constructed a 10,000 square foot cob citadel, as he calls it. Next concept is local. So building with cob falls under the umbrella of natural building, hence the need for natural resources, which can typically be found in your local area. And a cob house can be built from the earth right beneath the building site, and whatever natural resources not available on site can usually be sourced locally. So another characteristic of a cob home is that it's usually artistic. People are drawn to cob homes in large part due to their beauty and creative designs. So builders are not limited to 90-degree angles, and they can sculpt and mold cob to whatever shape they desire. And there's so much room for creativity and flexibility of design with this when it comes to building with cob. And you can freely sort of use your imagination this way. A cob home could be considered a place of shelter, but it could also be considered artwork. So the next characteristic is natural. The main ingredients for making cob are soil, sand, and straw, and water, which are all natural resources. So a cob house is not mainly composed of synthetic materials, but instead built out of natural materials found in nature. Next characteristic is social. Building a cob home can involve your community and friends to come together in the construction. And you don't have to be an expert to help in the building process either. Even little children can help build in a lot of instances. And building with cob can be a good social activity and is good for strengthening a community. Next characteristic is high standards. A house made out of cob is actually a high standard home. Many uninformed people would label a house made out of materials such as mud as a poor living environment, like something that would be found more like in a third world country. However, this is really just not the case. And on the contrary, a standard conventionally built home could easily be considered low standard if you really think about all their negative health effects that they have upon the inhabitants. So there it is. That's a long list of benefits for cob. And now let's see what you can actually build with cob. So cob is a really versatile material, and it can be used to build all kinds of things. Of course, cob can be used to build homes and other buildings, as we've seen from small to large. And many people build tiny homes with cob, which keeps a low carbon footprint, low environmental impact, and lower costs. And others build large and grand homes with cob, like the cob 10,000 square foot citadel in England. So because cob has a high thermal mass, its ability to store heat makes cob a great option for making ovens and baking breads and pizzas. And they work really, really well, and they're not hard to build either. And you can also build walls for your gardens or as privacy fences. And I think these look really great and serve a nice purpose. And you can also build a cob doghouse. Two pretty easy projects there. Good for beginners. And some other things you can do with cob, though not exactly the same mixture, but very similar, using the same ingredients, is to make earthen floors, or also known as adobe floors. And these are really great. They look nice, they feel good on your feet, and they're actually really strong and resilient. And they get that way from the oil and waxing applied over them. And you can also do earthen plasters. And these plasters complement cob perfectly and are also made with similar ingredients. And definitely a healthy choice over any synthetic paints. So there are all kinds of great things you can do with cob and its materials or ingredients. And the main ingredient for all this is just right beneath your feet. So that's pretty crazy. So what are these ingredients and where can you find them? Since cob can't be purchased in bags at the hardware store, you have to process the materials and make it yourself. And your first step in making cob will be to find good ingredients. And you'll need 4 basic ingredients to make cob: soil, sand, straw, and water. And all these materials are readily available throughout the United States, Canada, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, Europe, and pretty much all over the world. And there's a good reason why people have built with earthen materials all around the world since the dawn of civilization. So the first ingredient is soil. Cob is made from the soil right beneath your feet. Excavate the subsoil right beneath the thin layer of topsoil, and this is the main ingredient for cob. So the topsoil is the thin layer of dark dirt that contains mostly the organic matter, and the subsoil beneath has very little organic material and is where you'll find the clay-rich soil suitable for making cob. Many people have the misconception that you need to have clay to make cob, and this is not true. You only need a soil that's roughly composed of 15 to 25% clay content, not pure clay. And 15 to 25% is considered clay-rich soil. The rest of the soil is made up of sand, silt, and other aggregates. So soil for cob is generally easy to find in abundance, and it can usually be found all around the world. And there are a number of ways that you can test your soil to see how much clay content it has too, and whether it might be suitable for making cob or not. And here's one that you can try, which is pretty easy. So go dig up some subsoil from your yard, the stuff below the layer of topsoil, and fill a jar about 1/3 to 1/2 full with the subsoil. Then add some clear water into the jar and fill it to just below the top of the jar. Then tighten the lid on the jar and shake it up vigorously for about 30 seconds to a minute, making sure all the clumps are well broken up. And then set your jar on a level surface and just let the sedimentation take place. So for the most accurate results, don't move the jar for at least 48 hours. And once the sedimentation has happened and everything is settled out, the water should become clear, and you should be able to distinguish the layers clearly in each jar to determine the amount of each component in the soil. So this is probably my favorite soil test. Not completely accurate most of the time, but go give it a try sometime and you'll get sort of an idea of the composition of your soil. So the next ingredient needed for cob is the sand. And the majority of your cob mixture is actually composed of sand and other aggregates found in the soil. It usually hovers somewhere around 80%, so the other 20% is your clay. And this ratio will differ depending on where you get your subsoil from, and that's why the vast majority of times it's going to be essential to add additional sand into your cob mixture. And there are lots of different kinds of sands out there too, and it's important to know what kind to use. So one of the main guidelines for choosing sand for your cob mixture is to use a rough and coarse sand that has many different particle sizes in it. So a rough edge sort of sand helps the particles to lock together better, and it'll prevent serious cracking in your cob. And the last main ingredient that you'll need to have is straw. Straw is the component of cob referred to as the fiber, and it acts as a natural rebar like metal rebar would function in cement. And it adds the tensile and shear strength to cob walls, and it holds the cob structure together as a single monolithic piece. So you can find straw at farm feed stores, farmers, or sometimes at local home improvement stores like Lowe's or Home Depot. And it's also a good idea to search online for people selling straw bales too. Sometimes you can find them on Craigslist. And the other ingredient, which is usually not hard to get, is water. And there's nothing particularly special about the kind of water you use. If you're getting it from your water lines, then you have nothing to worry about. But if you're collecting it from a pond or open body of water somewhere, then just make sure that you remove any leaves or any other organic matter from it first before you add it to the cob. So the water is a crucial ingredient in cob because it's what turns your soil, sand, and straw into a gooey, thick building material. So remember, you just need soil, sand, straw, and water. It's not really that complicated, and the materials that you'll have a keen grasp on once you practice and study this technique a little bit. Now let me tell you about some ways to mix all these things together. There are a few options for you. There's some low-tech methods and some more high-tech ways. And the most simple and effective way to mix cob, in my opinion, is to use the tarp method. And this is a great mixing technique for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's cheap. All you need is a tarp, and like the ones you buy at hardware stores, those blue or brown tarps. So what you do with this tarp is you lay it on the ground and you place your materials in the middle and stomp on it with your feet. And when it gets flattened out, you flip it all over. You flip it over on itself using the tarp. And you grab two ends of the tarp and roll your mixture over. And then you stomp some more with it. And you keep repeating this stomping and flipping until the mixture comes out in a big roll. And it looks like a big sort of mud burrito. And once it's taken this form, then you can add the straw and you just stomp it in. And after this, your cob is done and ready to use. So the downside of the tarp method is it's really tiring after a long time of mixing like this. And this tarp method works best if you have a small project or a large group of people, I think. So my favorite method of mixing cob is to use a tractor. And you can make huge piles of cob with the tractor in just an hour or two with this method, and it saves you a lot of time and energy. So the method is similar in some ways to using the tarp, but it's just on a larger scale. So basically I start out by putting a big pile of materials out on the ground, and the tractor needs to have a big bucket on front so you can scoop up materials. And then I just mix it all up with the tractor bucket. And it takes a bit of practice and technique at first, but it's not too hard to learn. So at this point, I think you guys should have a pretty good idea of what cob is, what it's made of, and how to actually make it. So now let's start talking about codes and architects. Basically, the way that the building codes stand now, they support the construction of toxic homes made out of unnatural industrial created materials that are really negative to our health. And the only natural material that's generally used in conventional homes today is the milled wood. And homes and buildings have become extremely expensive due to outrageous prescriptions like minimum number of outlets per wall, minimum sizes for rooms, structural components that are overly engineered, and just irresponsible waste treatment systems like sewage and septic. But despite the growing interest in popularity in building with cob, there are barriers preventing this type of construction from really taking off stronger. In most countries, including the United States, there are no official building codes in place for cob building, which makes it very difficult to get building permissions for these type of structures a lot of the time. And because there are no codes, a lot of people who want to build with cob are blocked from pursuing this method of building. However, there's no hard set barrier prohibiting the use of cob as a building material. It's not illegal, just not understood or accepted easily. And there are ways to get past most of these barriers too. So sometimes they require spending more money, or sometimes they require some more careful planning on the part of the builder. So if you want to try building your cob house according to code, depending on the situation, you can usually expect to pay more money on things you maybe don't really want, such as septic systems or complicated electrical systems or other structural components. And you'll also need to spend a lot of time educating the county officials on what you're trying to do. So people skills are a must-have if you go this route, as well as a very patient attitude. Again, though there may not be any building codes for cob, that doesn't mean that earthen building is prohibited. A lot of people who build cob homes choose not to get building officials involved too, and many of them have had no problems. So a bit more about codes. The International Building Code, also known as the IBC, is a model building code developed by the International Code Council, and it's been adopted throughout most of the United States. The building code is a set of regulations concerned with life safety and is designed to assure that buildings are safe to occupy. And the primary regulatory issues are structural integrity, fire safety, and health safety. So building departments are mandated to base all their judgment on what's contained in this building code. In essence, this is basically a set of rules and guidelines that have to be adopted by local jurisdictions throughout the United States and sets the way buildings need to be constructed. Most developed countries have similar codes that also need to be followed. So the IBC makes no mention at all of cob as a recognized means of building. And this is where cob builders and natural builders tend to meet their stumbling block and barrier to entry. However, there are ways around these strict rules, and there are loopholes you can find to still build what you want. But you'll have to be the judge on what route to take. In rural areas, you can more easily get a permit since cob is more often allowed, either because there's no building regulation or there's a more relaxed building code for owner builders. And the areas where there are no code restrictions or enforcements are always in these rural locations. And these rural areas will allow the greatest opportunity to building a cob home. They tend to be more open to owner builders and alternative methods of building. So a call or visit to your local building department and planning office is the best way to get started here. And bring a rough drawing of your plans and expect to schedule some time with a plan reviewer to go over the basics. And eventually, you'll likely need to hire an architect and a structural engineer to stamp off your designs for approval. And as more people desire natural homes, people are finding new and creative ways to work with and around these codes. So if you want a code-approved natural house, try not to be a purist about it, and instead you might consider building a hybrid building that uses different building materials and building techniques to help you get what you want while still satisfying the requirements of the building department. So some COB builders decide to use the Adobe code, for example, and this code requires that you add cement to your Adobe blocks. The code requires that you be able to soak a brick in water overnight and it still be strong the next day. So this type of stabilization could also be applied to COB if need be. Just one example. So another option some people take is to build a framed house and fill in between the framing with COB. So build a pole building to support the roof load, and what you fill the walls in with can be negotiated in many cases. You'll have to determine what route to take according to a number of variables. Your needs, your wants, type of design you like, type of materials you like, how much money you're willing to spend or able to spend, and how much time you can take to do the project. And it's best to be open-minded and work with official building departments. You may have to take several sacrifices to doing this, but in the end you'll probably have a lot more peace of mind and possibly a better structure even. So now a bit about architects and how to work with them on a natural building project. You'll most likely need to hire an architect for a serious or large-scale building project. And when you find some prospects for an architect, set up a meeting with each of them to get a feel for them. And make sure that you know what's included as part of their service as an architect, such as construction drawings, which are required by the building department, engineering, 3D renderings, and who's responsible for plan delivery and application to the building departments, if it's them or you. And also, will they do site visits after the plans are accepted? So make sure to know these things, whether they're included or not. So hiring an architect to assist you on the design and proper construction of your house can be a very valuable move to take. If you don't have much prior design or construction experience, it's recommended to have an architect on your team. They can create presentable designs to more easily meet the requirements of your local building department. And as soon as you know who your architect will be, go meet with them. And don't wait until your project is already under construction to meet with them, since designs can easily be changed on paper and not easily changed on the actual building itself. So make sure everything is set correctly beforehand by meeting together. It's also a great idea to have a meeting with your architect and all of your subcontractors at the same time before any building actually begins. So this is a good way to work out all the details of the design and make sure that the subcontractors don't run into any problems later that might require more changes. And remember, changes will cost you money and time, so they want to be avoided if possible. Now, in the ideal situation, the architect that you hire will already have experience with COB or the natural building materials that you want to build with. But this is not going to be the case in most scenarios. Since finding an architect with natural building experience is not usually possible, you'll have to help educate them on the use of these materials. So try your best to support them in this learning process. If the architect seems interested and excited about the new material, then there's a good chance that they'll be a good choice for your team. And if they seem doubtful and uninterested, then they may not be for you. So take these things into consideration when looking for an architect. So now let's talk about some training. If you want to build a COB house or any other type of natural building, you're going to need to get some training in the skills. So whether you're going to be building it yourself or if you'll have someone else actually build it for you, you still need to have a deep understanding of designing and building with COB and other natural materials. So to get training, you can sign up for various live workshops out there. And these are excellent opportunities to get these skills and the understanding that you'll need. But there's some issues with this model of learning, and a lot of us seem to run into these same problems. So a lot of the time, people who are interested in cob can't take a cob workshop, and here are some of the main reasons why not. Because it's either too expensive, it's too far away, or they can't take time off to go attend. And this is really unfortunate, I think. And to get a good understanding of cob building, it's best to take a comprehensive workshop. And the problem here for most of us is that these workshops usually cost over $1,000, sometimes even multiple thousands of dollars when you add up all the travel expenses needed just to get there to the workshop. And then there are the apprenticeships, which can cost upward of $5,000 plus travel expenses and sometimes food and lodging in addition. And these apprenticeships are great too, but they tend to be a lot of repetition for the money. So either way you look at it, traveling to a workshop costs money and time. And most people are just not able to get enough time off from their jobs and duties to go take a cob workshop that can last 1 to 3 or even months long. And the reality is, to build with cob, you do need to educate yourself, and you do need to have a few skill sets. So I recognized these problems in the natural building community a number of years ago, and I've created a solution to help you here. So I'm offering to you a completely comprehensive online cob workshop taught through streaming videos and online learning materials. And this is over 9 hours of videos, almost 10 hours worth at this point, and it keeps growing. And I can honestly say that my online course will over-deliver on what you would learn at any regular cob workshop. And from what I've learned over the years is that 1 or 2 weeks at a traditional workshop is still just not really enough to cover all the essential topics that you need to really build your own cob house. For example, the vast majority of cob workshops, usually just for time's sake, don't even cover how to build a foundation. And this is absolutely essential knowledge to have. And we cover this topic about foundations in depth from the very beginning of the online course. So here's something I was thinking when I developed this course, is if you can get a degree, a college degree, by taking classes online from the convenience of your own home, then there's really absolutely no reason that we can't offer the same online distance learning format for cob workshops and natural building courses. So for all you who've stuck around so far and enjoyed the presentation, I do want to welcome you to join my online cob workshop training program. It's called the Cob Workshop Classroom. And inside the workshop classroom, you'll receive all the teaching videos, lesson notes, articles, case studies, question and answer lists, and other learning materials. So let me give you a quick tour of the workshop classroom and how the lessons are set up. So the dashboard will be sort of your central hub to all the learning materials. And from here you can find links to all the various subjects, the classroom blog, and your personal account page. And each lesson page contains a video and lesson notes for your personal reference. And there's Facebook integrated commenting for student interaction, discussions, and feedback on each lesson page too. So my online course will guide you step by step through how to build a cob house, whether you want to build big or small. So depending on what package you choose, it will either be each month you'll receive a new set of lessons and materials, or you can pay up front and now get all the lessons at once if you want to go quickly. And it's my guarantee that when you finish this course, you'll have the knowledge and confidence to build your own cob house. So let's take a closer look at what you'll get in the course. In month 1, when you first join, this is what you'll get. Introduction to building with cob. You get an introduction to natural building, design, site preparation, layout, selecting cob ingredients, and building foundations. And these lessons will get you off to a quick start and prepped for the next steps, which are presented in month 2. And here's what you get there in month 2. It focuses on cob mixing, foundations, and passive solar design, and continue learning about foundations and explore passive solar design, accompanying with thermal mass and insulation, and learning how to make cob with the tarp method. So let's keep going. And here's what you get for the third series of lessons. You learn about building cob walls, utilities such as how to integrate electrical and plumbing with cob, and how to mix large batches of cob with the tractor. Month 4, you learn how to install doors and windows into cob walls, how to trim the cob walls, how to build cob arches, and exploring building codes and permit requirements. Month 5 gets into earth and plasters and hybrid buildings. And month 6 gets into roofing and more natural finishes. In month 7, we explore integrating with more diverse earthen building materials, get into living roofs, an introduction to Tadalite finishing, and a couple more things. Then month 8 focuses on lime plastering, how to source the materials, mix it, and apply it. And then month 9 focuses on Tadalite, again learning how to source all the materials, to mix it and apply it and polish it. And this is a really rare skill. And then month 10 focuses on basements, how to build a cob house over a basement, how to protect cob in a moist climate, and how to build a roof before doing the cob walls. And then month 11 gets into architects and property, a couple things we touched on today in the presentation here. And then month 12 gets into earthen floors. So that's the basic rundown. Now, what you get from this course is a comprehensive cob workshop with actionable lessons each month, and there's no need for travel. You can learn from home, learn on your own time, and learn at your own pace, and only pay a small fraction of the cost. So one of the best things about my online cob workshop course is that it's just much more affordable than taking a traditional cob workshop. You'll only be paying a small fraction of what it would cost to go attend one of these live comprehensive cob workshops somewhere else. And this price is really so low, it's a real bargain for you guys. So depending on which of the two options you choose, for the first option, each month you'll pay a low $17 membership fee to access the workshop classroom and get all of its features. And you can just think about it this way: 12 payments of $17 is only $204. So for just $204, you're getting a full comprehensive cob workshop. And you'll never find a price this low for a traditional workshop anywhere. And remember, most of these courses will cost you thousands of dollars, weeks of your time, and the long travel. But here you can just pay the small fraction of the regular costs and get even more. And the second option, which I've made available now, is you can purchase the whole course up front for the $204. And then you get everything all at once. So no waiting necessary if you want to go quickly through it. So this course is priced so low, it's really a no-brainer, I think. And you're really saving hundreds or even thousands of dollars. And again, to sweeten this deal even more, I'm going to throw in a couple of these great bonus resources for you. And the first is my 96-page ebook, A Step-by-Step Guide to Building a Cob House. And this is my top-selling book, and it's really a great companion resource to the online course. And I normally sell this book for $10, but I'm going to give it to you for free if you sign up for the online course today. And the second bonus you'll get, this one includes 3 things. The first one is my report on cob homes and building codes. And this is my compilation of all my research and knowledge on how to build cob homes to code, how to get the permitting, or how to get through code loopholes if you want to go that route. And that's all stuff we touched on today in the presentation, so I'm sure you guys will find that really interesting. And I'm also giving you the cob garden wall building plans and the Freeman tiny cob house building plans. So again, to recap these bonuses, these are all the bonus resources you'll receive. Build a Cob House ebook, Cob to Code ebook, the Cob Garden Wall building plans, and the Freeman Tiny Cob House plans. And the normal value is $69. and you get it all for free this time. So in total, if you sign up for the online Cob Workshop today, you get the full subscription access to the Cob Workshop Classroom. You get the Build a Cob House ebook, the Cob to Code ebook, the Cob Garden Wall building plans, and the Tiny House building plans. And all you pay today is just the regular membership price of $17. And also remember that you can purchase the whole course up front and get everything at once for just $204. So that's a huge value. So at this point, I'm going to open it up for you guys to join, and I'm going to give you the link to get yourselves signed up. So a button should appear here in a second right below the presentation screen. Just click the button to purchase the course, and you can do it now and still keep listening to the show too. And you can pay for the course with a credit card or with PayPal. And I'll be going over question and answer here in just a minute. But I do want you guys to take action on this great offer now, and the button should be available. So just click that and you'll be taken to the secure checkout page to get signed up. And if you're still on the fence about it, I also want you to know, because I value you as students and customers who support the natural building movement, that there's no risk in you signing up and purchasing this course. You're protected by my 30-day 100% money back guarantee. And if you're not satisfied and within 30 days of signing up for the program want a full refund, you'll be refunded, no questions asked. And you also have the flexibility to cancel your subscription at any time if you choose to. So you're not locked into anything here. I just want you to know that there are no hidden or binding subscription contracts or anything like that. And I made this program for you guys. And I'm committed to over-delivering on this valuable learning content. And I want you to be comfortable and satisfied taking this course. So again, you can just click the button below to purchase your online course membership, and I'll leave that up until the end of the presentation. And now, without further ado, let's get into doing these question and answers. Okay, so I've already got a list of questions here that I'm going to go through and answer. So the remainder of this webinar will be the question and answer session. So let's begin. And the first question I received is, how can you protect a cob house from rain and moisture if you live in a wet climate? And this is a really frequently asked question. And there are a number of things you can do in this case to prevent water damage. And the first is to build a proper stem wall foundation that raises the cob walls at least a foot off the ground. And this prevents water runoff and splashback from hitting the cob walls. And the second thing you can do is to make long enough roof overhangs to prevent rain from hitting the ground too close to the cob walls. And next, it's best to finish your walls with a natural plaster to further protect the cob. And this can be any vapor permeable natural finish such as lime or earth-based plaster. And it's also good to design windowsills so that water won't sit on them and enter through little cracks around the window fixtures. And it's good to slightly tilt windowsills down and to put a drip line underneath on the bottom side of the sill. Okay, so next question. Okay, the question is, I live in tropical climate, Belize, Central America, and we have roughly 6 months of rainy weather, and the country is prone to hurricanes. It gets pretty hot and stays hot and humid almost all year round. Would cob be a good idea for a home here? We do have some indigenous people here who have built earthen homes in the southern part of the country. Okay, so I'm not really familiar with Belize specifically, but you aren't going to need to take advantage of cob's thermal mass properties so much down there. You might have a better design with thinner earthen walls actually. You could build cob walls, but I wouldn't go less than 12 inches thick with the walls. You might also consider other earthen building materials such as adobe or wattle and daub, and these could give you a thinner wall system but still be earth based. Okay, so next question here. Question is, it says, hi Alex and everyone, how can cracking be avoided in the cob walls? Okay, good question. The main way to avoid cracking in cob walls is to make sure that your mix ratio is being done right and that it's staying consistent through each batch. And it's good to make several tests before building the structure to make sure your ratio is right. And you can make test bricks to determine the amount of cracking. So adding more sand aggregate to your mixture is normally the best way to prevent cracking, and you need to find the right balance here though. Adding too much sand can be another problem. So test and practice first. Okay, next one. What building materials are best suited for East Texas? Are there any homes in East Texas? I'm somewhat familiar with East Texas, at least, though I don't know of any cob homes there, but it's certainly possible to build it there. I'm imagining that you have rather cold winters, and you might consider a hybrid building with cob and straw bale, or some other high insulation material like straw clay, or maybe even hempcrete. You could go full cob, but make sure that your interior heating system is going to be adequate for the cold winters. And the next question is another regional one. I'm in the Pacific Northwest and wondering about a living roof. Is this very practical, and what are the advantages, disadvantages? Okay, good question. So in the warm or hot months, you'll receive all the normal benefits of a living roof, such as the nice plant growth and the extra insulation on the top of the house from heat from the sun. But in the winter months, when you get snow, and you're going to have an issue making sure that it can hold this extra load from the snow, because it can get really heavy depending on how much you get there. But either way, no matter where you are, a living roof is going to need a lot of extra reinforcement to hold the load, because the roof is so much heavier. That basically sums it up. I hope that helps. And next question. When we use Tadillac on the outside part of the wall, can the wall still breathe? And the answer is yes, because the Tadillac is a lime plaster polished with an olive oil soap and is completely breathable, or known as vapor permeable, as all the other natural lime plasters are. So you won't have any issues applying it on a cob wall. Okay, next one. This question asks, what size of house is possible for 2 people to build in a year? Okay, this question is really subjective, and the answer will depend on a lot of variables. Variables such as, will you be using machinery to help you build? How many days a week or how many hours per day will you work on it? If you'll need to get inspections done or not, what type of climate you might be in, and things like that. So since there's no straight answer, I can only say that you can do whatever you want if you prepare well, though. But completing any cob house in 1 year is usually going to be a difficult task for 2 people. And of course, it's going to depend on the size, but 2 years is more likely. Okay, next question. What is the smallest square footage of a cob house that you are aware of? Honestly, the smallest cob house I'm aware of is a dog house in Georgia. But for humans, I've seen several tiny houses built with cob, and they range from 100 square feet and up. So going smaller is always easier. And I've got 2 more questions left here, and the next one is, if you're in the middle of building with cob and have wet cob on your structure, what do you do if you have to leave it? So if you know it's going to rain a lot, it's good to cover the walls with tarps if you can. This can prevent the walls from absorbing a lot of water. But in reality, this is almost not necessary in most cases. Unless you know it's going to rain for a week straight or something, you're usually okay to just leave it open to the rain. because cob is really quite resilient and won't just melt away like that. But you just want to make sure that it gets enough time to dry out again. Okay, and the last question I have is it okay to use radiant heating in an earthen floor? Yes, definitely. You can install radiant floor heating into earthen floors the same way that you would install them into a concrete floor or pretty much any other type of floor. But you get the added benefit of the thermal mass, which will make the radiant heating even more efficient and comforting. So it's definitely a nice combination. So that's all the questions here. And I'll just quickly wrap things up here. So I want to thank you all for taking the time out to listen to this presentation, and thank you for supporting natural building. There's always a lot of work to do in educating people on cob and these natural building materials and techniques, and improving the way that we build. So you can always feel free to contact me by email at alex@thiscobhouse.com, and I'll talk to you guys again soon, okay? So take care, and I'm signing out.